Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a full review of my Sinn EZM2B, otherwise known as a UX SDR. Bit of a mouthful, I know. Now, I have done a video a couple of years ago on this watch without the SDR bezel, but I felt like it really was time to kind of update it, really, to set it to my new format, what I kind of do here. So I thought you guys might like it anyway. So let's face it, the Sinn UX, this I feel is not really unloved, but I'd say unappreciated when it comes to Sinn watches. The reason being is that this is a quartz model. Now, most people don't like quartz models, and to me, I think you're crazy, because this is such a great grab and go watch, and it really has a real kind of unique identity versus some of the other U series watches. And it's not until you get one in your hands that you can really truly appreciate that. Now, this watch, technically, what makes this watch special is the oil inside. That's why you can still read the time at absolutely crazy angles, which you cannot do with a normal watch. But this wasn't Sinn's first oil-filled watch. That, after all, is why this is known as the EZM2B. There was an original EZM2, and that's what Bob is wearing over here. This was the very first oil-filled watch Sinn did. This started life, I believe it was around about 1997, and it ran all the way up to 2005. It's a slightly smaller version, but don't let that put you off. When it comes to water resistancy, these watches, I'm going to say, no, I think it'd be wrong to say hard to beat. You don't beat them. They are some of the deepest going freehand watches in the world. Let's put it this way. Back in the 90s, they were almost, dare I say it, arrogant enough to put waterproof on the back of a watch. That's how confident they were. Because this watch here can actually dive. The case can withstand 12 kilometers of water pressure. Now, yeah, I did say 12 kilometers. That's one heck of a deep way to go. But on the back of a watch, it actually only says, I say only 5 kilometers. Because after that, the sheer pressure will stop the movement, but it will not penetrate the case. The case is good to all the way down to that depth. Now, I should really talk about the sizes of this watch. It's a 44mm case. It's only 13.3mm thick, which makes it thinner than most of the other U series of watches. It's 50mm lug-to-lug design and size, and you have a 22mm bracelet. Now, let's zoom in a little bit on that dial. And I think personally, it is so legible, this watch. It's just so crystal clear. Now, I'll show this by, let's have a look at the U2. The U2 is a great watch, but when you look at a difference, you can see suddenly a shadow behind there. It doesn't look as classy as that. You don't get a shadow because of the oil inside this watch. It almost looks like the hands are printed on the screen. I've even had people think this was a smartwatch before, because when you look at this watch from an angle, you can't see anything. Even there, you have to get to that angle. This watch, you can read it at every single angle. It is really, truly impressive. So it gives you an idea of just how crystal clear that dial is. And I say, it's only when you compare two models together like this that you truly get a real good feeling for the UX, how crystal clear it truly is. Now, I have the SDR version here. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that I actually swapped this bezel over only recently, because I've owned this watch for many years, and it actually came with a silver bezel when I brought it, but the other week I actually changed it. This is the standard bezel which goes on that watch, so it would normally look all silver like that. But it's ever such an easy thing to do, as Sinn has their captive bezel system on this. Now, on the old Hydro model there, I believe that doesn't have the captive bezel. And what I mean by this, if you want to take this bezel off, you simply put a pry tool, like a knife, you prise it in between there and you'll pop it off. And that's common for many, many watches. Rolex, Seiko's, the full works. But Sinn introduced with this watch their captive bezel. You see these screws around here. You actually just release them, and when you do, get a pointer here, this ring actually sits back into the case. When you screw that in, that ring fits on the inside of the ring of this, locking it into position, and that's actually the bezel. This is also TEGIMENTed, which means it's actually incredibly hard to scratch. There is a test kit which goes to most dealers where they get a screwdriver and they ask the customers to try and scratch it. It is absolutely terrifying because it just feels wrong. It's like someone saying, go and scratch the side of that car with a key. You just don't want to do it. But that's how hard these are. These come out around about 12 or 1500 Vickers, which is just numbers I appreciate. But let's put it this way. This watch here is about 180 Vickers strong. If I put a screwdriver to that, it will scratch. This shouldn't. And the black hard coating further increases that hardness to over 2000 Vickers, making it incredibly impervious to scratching. Not impossible, but impervious, I state. Now, both of these versions I've got here are what's called the GSG 9 versions. Now, the GSG 9 is like the border patrol, like an anti-terrorism sort of like team in Germany. Now, the reason why I have these, their logo on the bottom of its dial, is because they actually use them. Now, I've seen lots of watches say as used by the SWAT and all these other flash names, but really, do the SWAT actually, use them? No, they don't. If you go online and search for pictures of the German GSG 9, they wear Sinn watches, and most normal one is this one. Now, it does have a slightly different colour markings, but which Sinn will not supply a civilian. But that's just the way it is. We get this colour. Now, the reason why the crown is on this side, many people think, can't quite grasp this, but the military asked for it not to be on this side, or at least be down here, or preferably on that side, as when they're wearing gloves and they've got firearms, they don't want anything which might interfere with when they're taking shots. So that's why it's on this side. So, as I say, it is a quartz movement. But it is a good quartz movement. It's a ETA 955 652, I believe it is in this one. And that is actually chronometer spec quartz movement. Yes, you can get chronometer spec quartz movements as well. This watch, I find, normally runs to about 7 seconds a year. Roughly 7, sometimes 8 seconds a year I get out of this. Now, if ever the watch needs a new battery, well, I say if ever, my last battery in this lasted 9 years. So it gives you an idea of the battery life. I think Sinn state 5 or 6 years, but that's very conservative. If you don't live somewhere where it's absolutely freezing cold, the battery should last you up to 9 years, or possibly, I've even heard of 10 years out of these. And I think at the time I sent it back to Sinn, it was about €250 roughly, but that is at this time of recording. And it has to go back there because of the oil inside this watch. One of the other features the oil offers is when you're underwater, if you hold a watch, I would say roughly about this angle, that would become a mirror underwater, just simply the way the light diffusion off the dial and so forth. But this, you can see it at all angles in water, so it is truly impressive stuff on there. Now, the actual case on this watch is made from U-boat series steel, so as used by nuclear submarines, so it's completely impervious to salt water, but it's also then bead blasted, and that's why it has this matte finish on there, and it means it won't reflect. So if you're in water, this won't go looking like a trinket underwater. It does make it a tiny bit harder. You can scratch it though, but one thing to be aware, you can actually order this watch with a a tagmented case and the clasp as well, I believe, also tagmented. So you can see on here, I've got a couple of small marks on there. If this was tagmented, the likelihood is that wouldn't really show up so much. This watch here has got a tagmented black case, and to give you an idea, this watch is over 9 years old now, and it's not doing bad for over 9 years. So there you go. But you can also, if I zoom out, you can also order this watch with the silicone bracelet, which I must admit does look really good. I have a black bracelet clasp on this at the moment, but you would normally get it with this, which you can also order in tagmented. You can, as I say, you can also have this watch in red. You can have white, which I must admit does look really good with this model. You can even order it with the butterfly clasp. Now, albeit this is the older style butterfly clasp, and you can get the newer one, which I believe is much improved. These clasps here for the silicone straps, this is the old style. So it folds out like that. You have a diode link extension here. It's okay. It's not too bad. But there is a new version of this clasp. You can see how much this has been beaten up over many, many years. I think I probably had 13 years, maybe longer, which has a on-the-fly adjustment, which is much better. So, yeah. But overall, I think this watch is really good. The movement, as I say, is a thermostable, so it actually changes with the temperature. Now, one of the reasons why it can go so deep is on the back here, we actually have a diaphragm which moves in and out, so allowing for variations of temperature, which I think is rather cool. So it gives you the idea of just some of the tech in there. But it's also, I believe, a 7 joule movement. The accuracy is normally good to around about -20 +60 degrees. So it gives you a good idea. The crown on these as well has the D3 system. So if by some weird and random chance that the crown did unscrew, it's not going to be a major problem even when you're underwater. So it's no problem at all. And it does have a nice big chunky crown there, which is easy to grasp. You also have drilled lugs, which makes changing out the bracelet incredibly easy. The bracelet itself has got a rather funky hex key system for actually screwing the links in and out, which is rather cool. And I just think it's a really cool watch. It's just a shame that more people don't consider it. As for bezel action, what's here? Nice, very nice. It actually, for some reason, when I swapped over the bezel, I actually think the bezel felt better on the silver one. I don't know why. The loom on this watch also is quite respectable. I'll drop a couple of loom shots in across the video. Obviously, you also have the date window here. It is also available in non-GSG 9 variations, where it's just called the UX. You can also buy this watch in full black, which I think does look really, really nice as well. To me, it's just a super watch. Let's try it on the wrist so you can see how it looks. Quick wrist check. I'm wearing a 50th anniversary Rolex Submariner, otherwise known as a Kermit. I say Bob's got on his EZM2. I put this on. My wrist size is 7¼ inches. The clasp on this, I know people whinge about the clasp, but look, this watch is quite a few years old. 3 levels of micro adjustment. You also have, if you pull it out, you have the dive link extension, and it fits nice and solid. And most importantly for me, it's slim. I do like that, and that's it on my wrist. I think it looks really good. Also, being that it is quite slim, you don't read the back of a watch so much under there. It seems to press down. You only read this, and then it looks like quite, I think, like, yeah, almost quite a slim watch for what it is. And it really is, I think, just very, very cool. You can see, actually, you might be able to see it. There's a bounce on the hand. The hand goes forward and then bounces back ever so slightly. I don't know if you'll see it. No, probably not quite on this angle. but it lines up perfectly with the markers on there, which is always good. The reason why it does bounce is that it's going through, as it goes through the fluid, it offers a certain amount of resistance and then goes back. So there you go. But it's just a shame more people don't consider this watch, because I think it's a real start in the Sinn range. Let me know what you guys think anyway. Sorry for the long video on this one, but it was worth it. Okay then guys, stay safe out there and take care. Bye.